I'm Derek Moore.
And what's your background?
I'm a software engineer from Kansas City. I've been working in the field of internet software for about 20 years.
And what are you passionate about?
I want, I guess, my efforts to change computing forever.
Forever.
Forever. I'm more interested in world domination than money, I guess.
So what's your project?
I've had a lot of them. I'm perhaps most interested in using Bitcoin as a distributed storage system and massively scaling on-chain storage and deploying hypermedia content on-chain as kind of like a back end for web services or for a new internet.
What will that provide for humanity?
If you think back to the 90s, there was a website called mp3.com, and all the local bands in the United States uploaded their albums to mp3.com. And one day, mp3.com disappeared, and every band in the US lost everything they uploaded. Those bands migrated to MySpace, and through mismanagement at MySpace, again, all of their albums were deleted. With Bitcoin, we can provide infrastructure where that will never happen again. I can't tell you how many private collections of digital camera photos I've lost over the years. Now I can pay Google on a per year rate to store those images for me, or I can pay a little bit extra and put those on Bitcoin and never lose them again. When I die, I'm not going to be able to pay Google my annual fee. What's going to happen to my photos? So.
And who knows if Google will exist anyway?
Right. So just like mp3.com disappeared and Friendster disappeared and MySpace disappeared, Facebook and Twitter are going to disappear.
Yeah, I don't think that's a question. So why are you here? Why at Cambrian?
Well, it's an excellent opportunity to meet others and work with them. I have really diverse interests in this area, and I've done a lot of kind of publicity stunts and experiments. And I think I've impacted these people in some way, and the tools I'm trying to build are, relevant to what we're all doing.
So can you see yourself here more as a mentor than actually developing a specific project, or?
I think there's that. I'll find opportunity while I'm here to work on my projects. Of course, I'd love to do some of this stuff full time instead of my nights and weekends. But having a lot of experience in the startup community, I don't want to. I'm okay for some of my projects to build slow and retain full ownership rather than go into deficit financing just so I can work full time. Now, certainly, I want to accelerate my efforts with others. I'm a huge fanatic of open source software and free software. I think that sort of the incentives that open source provides are incredibly powerful to the corporate systems and to we literally live in a world now where IBM and Red Hat and Microsoft and HP and all the big names I could list, they are building off of each other's momentum in Linux, and there's a huge opportunity for us to do the same. And in fact, it's irrational of us not to.
Well, there's an element of play in open source, which is not really available through the proprietary companies.
Right. Well, and I would say the future of work is play. The future of learning is play, and we're starting to realize that in education, that to get this stuff to sink into our children, it has to be a playful, encouraging environment. And I think the same is true for work. If we want to get the best, out of ourselves, we have to be, enjoying what we're doing. So a lot of maybe what I've done, the spectacles I've created in Bitcoin are, they look very playful. and it looks like I'm just screwing around, but these are the various stunts I've done are opportunities for me to build up my tool set or implement the next feature I was missing, or
feeding your self-interest.
Right, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So I do want to talk more about play because it's so important. So I'm studying a method called Feldenkrais, which is by somebody who introduces play into body movement. And what we've been talking about, so I've got intensives that I do each year, and this last one was about the importance of play.
Okay.
Because it's like the uncertainty. It's an area where people can develop uncertainty and bring certainty to skills and talents, or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that uncertainty leads to a certain productive chaos, and an ability to make leaps in logic that are actually valuable and true. So rather than deducing that entire progress, we can just leap and infer it.
And they're validated as well. The processes are validated, and in an environment where others are involved.
Right.
So that they can live for somebody else as well and further develop if needed.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with this group. I don't know if it's a group therapy, but it's a kind of a group session called interplay. And interplay is some kind of a, I don't want to say it's an alternative to yoga, but a lot of people come together and they do yoga. Well, a lot of people can come together and do interplay. And I have a friend who holds these interplay sessions, and I've attended a few, and it's this stuff is not only addictive but contagious, right? And in psychology, they say that on the short term, bad is stronger than good. But we know perhaps from societal development or family structures that in the long term, good is stronger than bad. And if we can somehow flip that and make good stronger than bad in the short term, we need to introduce these aspects of playfulness, I believe, to do that.
And also games,
right,
which is what you brought to this event. The structure of games where people can play and it's not a life or death situation. But there are scores, there's boundaries, we can create rules.
Right. And there's still competition, right? But there's mutual celebration, as well.
Well, they say it's eliciting the best in others rather than the worst.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So now, BSB, BSB, Bitcoin, or Craig?
Sure.
What was your moment of truth?
Well, I guess I've been observing and studying Bitcoin about since it came out. I became aware of it early on through a website called Slashdot. Their byline is news for nerds, stuff that matters. It was one of the first blogs on the internet and was really popular among early kind of dot-com boom computer workers. And so I saw Bitcoin on there and I read the white paper and I was like, oh, a mass surveillance system with money. I get it. But then the community would talk about anonymity and privacy, and maybe privacy is achievable in a mass surveillance system, but the way they were going about it, it wasn't. My background is in network operations for internet service providers, so I would have to trace traffic, and I would have to, triangulate things and discover things. And sometimes the authorities were coming to us for IP addresses, and we would have to trace logs and trace access. And so I was pretty good at tracing, and I could just read in the white paper that this was a traceable system, and people were confusing it for an anonymous system. And that the community was kind of miseducated about its own system prevented me from getting involved in the community. Or I was waiting for the community to wake up to the reality of this thing. And so I just kind of studied it, watched it, expected it to fail. And I would talk to Luke Dash Jr. Annually or kind of frequently and figure out what's going on and what he's thinking, or tell him what I'm thinking. And I started to notice that this thing is not failing like I expected it to. How can this Ponzi scheme go on forever? It seems to be going on forever. And I started to realize that, like, if I don't get involved and act upon my perspective and where I see this thing could possibly go, then Bitcoin could turn into something like very scary, right? And I have 2 little boys, and I'm thinking about, like, well, my expectation for Bitcoin to fail is not happening. Bitcoin is obviously not failing or going to fail. But if I don't inject my narrative and do my own proof of work, then the world I'm potentially leaving to my children could be a disaster. The tools, I think, are neutral, and it's how we use the tool, and it's how we understand the tool. So I have an analogy I've talked about for a long time that, like a shovel, I can take this shovel and I can bash your head in, and I can dig a hole 6 feet deep and I can bury you there. Or I can take that same shovel and I can dig a hole twice as deep, and I can access the waters of life, and I can sustain a community. And I think the future of Bitcoin is kind of the same. It can become something terrible for humanity, or it can become something great for humanity. And I was realizing that the money-only future of Bitcoin is not going to fail, but is going to create something terrible for humanity. So I wanted to get involved and help people realize Bitcoin isn't only money. Yes, it has a built-in money, and it has a built-in money for a variety of reasons. But in my view, that money is endogenous to the system, so that we can buy access in the system. And that, I think, neutralizes some of the sort of terrible prospects that Bitcoin could be leveraged to bring about. So I want to kind of know that I'm preparing a future that I won't fear my children live in.
Awesome. Just curious, one question. With your background into investigating pathways, did you look into Silk Road?
Not deeply, but I warned a lot of my friends that were using it. Well before people were talking about immutable evidence trails. I was telling my friends it's a mass surveillance system. Don't use this to buy drugs. Like, get cash from an ATM and, stay in the black market. You're creating so many evidence trails using Bitcoin to engage in Silk Road. Evidence trails in the postal system, evidence trails in, all over the place.
So what about Mt. Gox and the major hacks? Did you just, like, out of curiosity, go and have a look to see if you could find where the funds were coming from?
I guess there I figured other people were on top of it.
All right, cool. So the future, where do you see yourself in the future of Bitcoin?
That's uncertain. I have a day job, and I'd like to deploy some of these capabilities where I work. I work with professional sports enterprises and entertainment venues, and we do a lot around ticketing and point of sale and merchandising. And I think Bitcoin applies directly to those. And I'm particularly interested in the ticketing use case. Ticketing systems are very expensive for people to use, and they give a large share of their profits to these ticketing providers. And at my job, we integrate with all of the ticketing providers, and we create an abstraction layer to smooth over the differences between the ticketing providers. And I think we're in a good position to outcompete the ticketing providers by replacing traditional backends with Bitcoin and tokenizing tickets and, printing an entire season's worth of tickets for 3 cents.
What will that provide for the end user? How will that make life more convenient for the end user? What options will be available?
Sure. Well, a big part of ticketing has become the secondary market. If I'm a season ticket member and I'm not going to attend a game, I put my tickets up for sale, and I get some of my expense back in letting other people attend. The benefit to the arena in these secondary markets is they fill the seats and they sell concessions. So a lot of these ticketing providers, they are intermediaries for the secondary market as well, for finding kind of discounted secondhand tickets the day of the game when you just spur of the moment decide to attend. And that sort of thing can become a true peer-to-peer marketplace on top of Bitcoin. And again, we're not maintaining a bunch of extra infrastructure, a bunch of extra programs and logic to facilitate a kind of a back-endless secondary market if we were to do this stuff on Bitcoin.
So that could also map over airline tickets.
Absolutely, yeah, everything, right? Movie tickets, all kinds of tickets. Now we're predominantly arena tickets.
The back end.
But yeah, but it's all the same, right? Yeah.
Awesome.